Hey everybody, and welcome to the Fart Fetish Podcast, the first episode of 2023. I can't wait to start today's episode, but let me first just say that the Fart Fetish Podcast is a monthly podcast about sexual acceptance and building community. Episodes are available on almost all major podcast platforms. You can also support the show on Patreon to join the Discord and even become a producer. Check out the link at fartfetishpodcast.com. On today's show, we have a special treat with both Dil and Jules returning as dual guests to talk about a wide variety of topics. We dive into discussions of fantasy-only kinks, Gen Zs, farter and sniffer dichotomies, OnlyFans, capitalism, and socializing online, among other things. It's an especially fun episode today here on the Fart Fetish Podcast. Keep in mind this episode was recorded in August of 2022, so when we're talking about times, they're a little off. At Dil's request and for his privacy, I have altered his voice for this interview. Dil and Jules, thank you very much for both coming back on the podcast. For Dil, it's been about 3 months since we recorded our episode. Has anyone made any comments to you about that appearance? Specifically, I recall you said people might disagree with you on what you said about the farter sniffer sub-dom dichotomy in the gay fart fetish space. Has anyone challenged you on that?
Oh, firstly, thank you so much for having me back. In terms of people reaching out to me after that episode, a couple of people have, and they were like, "Oh, I really enjoyed listening to it. I liked the kind of things that you were saying." Surprisingly, no one really disagreed with what I was saying about that, which is interesting. But then again, I feel like the kind of people that reached out to me were the kind of people that would be taking my side anyway. Like they would be more on the farter side, I guess. Yeah, funnily enough, when I was listening to Jules's episode, that's when when you guys were talking about my comments, that's when I kind of realized, maybe there is a bit of disagreement with Jules' perspective himself. Maybe he can talk a bit more about that. But then I kind of realized, I kind of agree with what he's saying. Where you guys were talking about if when it comes to meeting up, people can kind of define a role for themselves that they're comfortable with. But when it comes to trading videos and stuff, then it's not okay to just be like, "Oh, I want to take everything that you've got and I'm not going to send you anything." But yeah, most reactions, or not pretty much all reactions, have been quite positive. And yeah, like we talked about at the end of the episode that I was previously on, it has reached a good number of people.
That's great. And one thing I will say about that is it seems to be what is nice about it is you kind of expect pushback or people to be like, the negative. You expect the negative to come at you. And surprisingly, I think it seems like negative people just kind of stay quiet on this. And it seems to be mostly supportive people that are the ones that actually reach out, which I find quite an enjoyable discovery.
Yeah, I think now that you mention it, that it's kind of obvious that that's what would happen. If you disagree, I don't know how many people there are that I hate listening to this. I'd like to think that there aren't any, or very few if there are any. But yeah, I think it's good in general that, like you said, the people that agree and kind of have similar viewpoints are the ones reaching out.
Absolutely. Jules, do you have anything to add or respond to Dill's comment, or has anyone talked about your appearance in your circles?
I've had a couple of my friends get back to me on it. Two never finished it, but they said it was good. And then my one friend actually was talking about she was really into it. She said I did great. She said that it was good, just sometimes my points weren't clear until after I was done talking. I was like, fair enough, I'll be more precise next time. As it comes to disagreeing, I don't I agree with everything that Dill has said in his answer beforehand, where if you're trading videos, then you can't just always take and then not give, because that's things. But when it comes to meetups, it's just better to be in roles that you're comfortable with, because there's no fun in that degree.
Absolutely. I'm gonna jump my question order a little bit because it seems most appropriate. But like in listening back to both of your interviews, I hear, and from both of you, that there's a fair amount of pushback within the gay fart fetish community against bad actors. Like on the straight side, you might have some, talk of like, oh, don't give this creator your money. She's using fake sound effects or whatever. But it really seems like the gay side actually tries to police, in a good way, I know that's not a great word, but police their fellow fart fetishists against, for instance, passing off content as their own, or trying to make people realize how their like horny, aggressive commenting is inappropriate. Are there any other examples of pushback that you've seen in your communities, and how are these pushbacks received by the majority of the community? Jules, go ahead and answer first, if you would.
My pushback is very small of what I've seen, because I follow very few people, but those people follow everyone else. So I guess I have a picture of it. There's been a huge campaign recently about one account that was sharing things, but also sharing underage stuff. So that was more of a concern about that as well. But also just bad actors in general. One of them actually messaged me, being like, "Hey, do you want to like do this?" I'm like, "No, I like I'm not into that type of stuff, but like, thanks anyways." I hope that answers. I'm not the most topical on this one.
Not at all. Not at all. Don't feel like you have to explain yourself at all. Whatever you have is whatever you have. I'm not. There's no judgment here. What about you, Dil? What have you seen?
I think you're absolutely right with what you were just describing before in terms of the pushback on our side against people like that. I know the example that Jules is talking about, that was quite recent. I believe in that specific case there were a couple of well-known content creators that this account was kind of not targeting, but like stealing their videos, and then they kind of spoke up about it and kind of reached out to their followers to be like, hey guys, can we make sure this guy stops doing what they're doing? And overall the community was quite supportive, and like following them, seeing what they were tweeting, seeing like what the response was. I think like there were multiple accounts that were blocked, but like other people kept track of everything. And yeah, like I think because the creators themselves had like a good sense of community, friendship even between them, that it was able to happen like that, like they were interacting with each other quite nicely in a good way. And yeah, because of that, they were able to kind of bring everyone together and stop that from happening. And like that kind of thing has been going on for a really long time, even back before Twitter was the main space for us. Like even back in the Kik days, you'd be like, oh, don't talk to this person, don't talk to this person. They're just gonna like take all your things without giving anything back, or yeah, like that kind of thing has been there for a while. And I think that's one of the good things about our side of the community, is that we have that. But at the same time, unfortunately, we have the bad actors in the first place, and it would be nice if we didn't have them.
Of course. I will say though, and not no, I'm not defending bad actors. No, I think it's kind of inevitable though that bad actors will exist. One thing I was going to say though that surprised me in your response is, I don't think, and feel free to correct me if you're wrong, I don't think you two run in the same community circles, and yet you both kind of knew about the same incident. So that really speaks to how small the community is, and not in a like, oh, it's a small, we're a small gathering community, but really the news will get around if you're not a acting in good faith. If you're a bad actor within the community, it will be spread around, not in a like, oh, gossipy way, but just like people will not want to play with you or interact with you because of your actions. And I think that's something for people to keep in mind, whether they be straight or gay or whatever, is that this is a small community. So if you're coming here with ill intention or bad vibes, bad juju, whatever, like you're gonna be found out and gonna be called out in many ways.
It is a small community, and I also do find it interesting that we are in like different circles. I think in this specific instance, it's because it was with two quite popular large accounts, so that they tweet something, they'll get quite a few retweets. So even if you're not following them directly, like someone that you are following is probably following them, and that's how it will kind of come up. In terms of like smaller things, it's less likely to get around. But yeah, if you're like one of the bad accounts and you're quite big, because that has happened, that will kind of spread around as well.
For sure. Let me jump to Jules. Back in your interview that we just had, actually, but you talked about being terrified of people and but trying to get into the community. What do you think is your next step? Like, what are you trying to get at next? What's your action plan, I guess, is another way to put it.
Um, I am still terrified of people because it's just I have issues talking to people if I'm not face to face with them. I just find it easier to be with someone, or like even if it's just like a voice, because I like seeing reactions in real time. I've started my action plan. I per se is like I'm starting to like join in on like conversations, like post. I was going to start posting my own stuff, and then I kind of chickened out on that because I was like, not right now, but like maybe in like a couple months. But that's pretty much it. Yeah, just getting comfortable with like using social media as a whole, because I've never been good at it, or never even like tempted to be to even like use it in a way. So just figuring out how that works on its own is going to be a major part of it.
For sure. Well, and I'm with you there. Like, I mean, I don't love the online forms of communication in general. I too like being with people. The only struggle with it is finding those people to hang out with. That's why I generally try to go into the kink community, because there is that at least knowledge that everyone knows. At the very least, don't kink shame other people. Like, and I like to have that, because when you talk to normal people, they don't have that pretense. So yeah, they might be nice, and they probably will be nice, but you just don't know. Whereas when you go with kink people, it's almost like you have this foreknowledge that they've been versed in how to at least be respectful in hearing your fetish out, in other words. Dil, how do you feel? We never really talked about confidence or socialization on your side. Do you have any thoughts or feelings on that area for yourself?
Not for myself, not necessarily. Like I can talk about my own experience in that regard. And like I find it quite interesting that Jules is kind of at this stage where he's like trying to get to the point of trying to start posting online. And I think you mentioned this in his episode, where like you find that to be like the easier side of things, whereas like telling people about the fetish in person, like that's the more challenging aspect. Which like that's how I see it as well. Like posting online, like that's relatively easy. I first started posting online because back when this vid was in its heyday, um just to be able to get access to other people's videos. So it was kind of for selfish reasons. I'm just like, oh, there are lots of things here that I'd like to watch, but no one's gonna add me as a friend unless I have my own things to share. So let me start posting. Yeah, that was kind of my experience with it. And I guess it was a little bit nerve-wracking to an extent, in that like I wasn't sure like what the reaction would be. But like once you get past that first video and like you see how people react, then it's just like, oh, okay, like it's doable, it can happen. And recently there was actually someone on from the gay community on Twitter was like, oh, I really love how there's very little like shaming or anything on our side of the community. It's just like, as long as you're posting videos and being nice to each other, like we can all get along, kind of thing. I don't fully agree with all of that, but to a degree, he's right. To a degree, he's right, I'd say.
That was good. God, I had a question. Oh, I was gonna. I remember. I was gonna be not mean to Jules, but I was gonna be like, yeah, what's wrong with you, Jules? You have all this confidence and you can't go out and like, no, but I'm kidding. I'm obviously kidding, Jules. But no, like it is. I think it is surprising for some people, because you do have so much confidence. You have told so many people that the fact that you're a little more hesitant in the community of people who would maybe understand better than the people you've told already is it seems backwards, but obviously it's your experience. I'm not telling you like, feel this way about it. It's just not the norm, and I guess, what we learn here is none of us are the norm in many different ways. We all have our ways of deviating from the way people are, as it were, quote unquote,
I think all of us should appreciate that, like, us in particular, we should understand that, like, it's okay to not be quote unquote normal. So yeah, we shouldn't put other people down for not being normal.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I definitely did not intend to put you down, Jules. That was not my goal. I was just trying to be fun with you.
No, I get it. You were actually nicer than most of my friends' jokes, so I appreciate that.
I'm sorry to hear that, but I'm glad to hear that at the same time. But all this talk actually brings us to an interesting point. Dil, I know you talked about doing videos when we had our interview, but since then you've told me you're also on OnlyFans. What drove you to make that change, and how do you make that distinction between what is monetized and what is not for you?
Yeah, so, it's a very recent thing for me. Well, actually, interesting story behind it. This kind of has been in the works for about a year. It kind of started out as a joke, where I was just like, talking to a fetish friend and being like, "Oh, I'm just going to start an OnlyFans. Like, hey, help me make some things, and we'll get it going." And then like we kind of took it semi seriously and like made a whole lot of content, but then we had trouble setting up an account, so we kind of just like, okay, well, scrap that, we're not going to be doing that. But then within the past month, I guess, I was just like, you know what, let's try it again. I'm gonna try to get the account set up, because like I've got all this content, I enjoy sharing it with people, and it's like I can see there are other people out there making money off this, and I, not to like toot my own horn, haha, not to be one of those people, but I feel like I make relatively good content. So it's like, if other people are getting paid for this, why shouldn't I? And yeah, so it's like it's only been about 2 weeks now, so I'm kind of still figuring everything out. I've got an idea of, in terms of what's paid content and what's free, because like, still going to be making free stuff. I'm not going to be one of those straight alpha jock types who are like, you need to pay to see anything of me. Yeah, but like, it's a work in progress. I still kind of, yeah, like I said, figuring out everything as I go, but I have an idea of what's premium content, if you will, and what's like what I'm happy to put out for free.
Nice.
I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think so. And if I may get political for just one sentence here, if you have a problem with monetization, your problem is most likely with capitalism. Just as a matter of, because, we're all in this world of needing money to survive, whether it's rent, it's food, it's water, literally we need money to survive. So it's almost foolish in a way to do any part of your time for no money. Now, that's not to say don't volunteer or help people or anything like that, but outside of those pure and good pursuits, I can't say philanthropic. Philanthropic. That's it. Exactly. Outside of those pursuits, we all need money, and being reasonable and running a good business is definitely important. I'm not saying, be unscrupulous, but there's literally, it's almost, as you get older, it's almost a waste of time to not be making money with what you do with most of your time. But as I said, I will move on from that unless someone has a response, because I wanted to talk about the how have you found me and Jules talked a bit about the community aspect being also there on OnlyFans beyond like the porn subscription model. Have you found that to be the case, or how has that been?
I'll talk about that. First, just to add to your point that you made just before, I literally told someone that exact same thing. They were they were talking to me about, oh, you've got an OnlyFans now. No, 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 no. Does that mean, you're not going to start doing whatever? And I was like, well, this is what I'm doing. If you have a problem with it, like, blame capitalism. So yeah, like that's like, I was getting kind of defensive about it because it just, I think to some people it might seem like a big 180 for me, whereas I wasn't against OnlyFans before. I think I said in my previous interview, if it will be nice if you didn't make this paid content, but at the same time, I understand why you're doing it, and here I am. Now I'm one of them.
It happens.
But yeah, exactly.
I don't think. Here's the thing. I don't think you need to feel bad about it. I think there's something to be an aware capitalist. Like, don't be an asshole, essentially. But like, this is the world we have. Like, if there was a different world, a more idealistic world, when I was acting, I was all about that idealistic world. I'm like, fuck this. We should, I'm going to auditions. I'm doing all this fucking work. Why aren't I getting paid for any of it? And mostly as an actor, you don't get paid unless you're, lucky enough to get those jobs. So my point is, there are a lot, and it's not just actors. There's a lot of people in society doing money and not doing work and not getting paid for it. Mothers, or stay-at-home fathers, or any sort of those jobs, totally disregarded. But I don't want to waste our time on politics. I apologize I took it that route, but I do have a passion about it. I feel like I've hinted at those type of thoughts in previous episodes, and I just wanted to say it out loud. I'll take any judgment that comes. Jules, do you have... Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
No, please.
Oh, no, let Jules talk. I feel like I've been doing too much talking. Well, I wanted to hear Jules' opinion as well.
No, Jules, I was just going to ask you, you already talked about this. Do you have any additional thoughts about like OnlyFans and the community aspect? Like I say, beyond just like, I'm buying this person's content.
I always believe, because I'm very, I'm frugal, but I'm not when it comes to buying things. I'm always on the thing where I will get stuff if I like the creator. And I also have seen a lot of Dil's work, so I enjoy it. I'm not gonna. It's fun. It's exciting. It's good stuff. But no, I just feel like that if you're going to make something and you're going to profit off of it, and you're making money on something that you like, and that's always a good thing to do. It's just making sure that you stay grounded and that you keep engaging with your audience, because once your audience isn't there, it doesn't matter if you're still posting and trying to monetize something when you aren't getting a return, because you kind of fucked your audience over. So it's just like maintaining a good relationship. So even if it's like message them every so often, be like, oh, how are you doing? Like, it's been a while. Or just like using that parasocial relationship that we have on like with influencers and online things, where you play off that, where like where the person knows you, so you can use those things, being like, I don't know the person I'm talking, but they kind of know me, so we can kind of have like this, like we're talking like we're acquaintances almost, to keep engagement up.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that there are creators who will engage in that kind of thing, and not just like, this is a business. You want to buy something or not? Get out,
I think that's been, so far, like I said, it's only been 2 weeks, but that's been my experience so far as well. Like, people have messaged me on OnlyFans, and it's weird in that I feel a little bit of a power imbalance in my favor, but like that's kind of an incentive for me to talk to them, and to talk to them, to interact with them, just because like I know that it's not just the content that they're paying for. They're kind of paying for like that ability to talk to me, to interact with me. It's like, I think it's a very new way. When I say new, I mean like within the last 10 years kind of thing, just in general, in terms of like business practices, where you're not just buying the product, you're kind of buying into the whole, like, you're buying into the experience of like knowing this person. And like, yeah, it's very different to being just in the non-monetized space, where, like, if people talk to you, you don't really owe them anything. When you know that they're paying for your stuff, it's like, well, now I have to kind of live up to that. Also, I wasn't aware that Jules knew about my stuff, so that's nice to hear. Thank you.
You're welcome. I was before you did the podcast, I was following you on Twitter for a bit, and that's why I feel like I know the circle that you're in. I just don't talk to the people in it.
We're very nice people. Like, you should start posting. You should, like, you'll be welcome with open arms. Like, you seem like a great person. So yeah.
I try my best.
Well, that maybe brings us to Dil. You had a question for Jules based on his interview, and I read your question, but I just don't know if I fully understand it as well as I should to like be able to put it in my own words. Something I'd like to talk about based on your conversation in the last episode is the idea of sexual scripts and the perception that not having kinks is the norm, vanilla normativity, as you will. And following on from that thought, the idea that some kinks are more acceptable than others, and the parallels all this has with sexual freedom for the LGBT plus people in general.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's quite a bit to unpack in that, isn't there? But yeah, the perception that not having kinks is the norm, and the parallels with like sexual freedom for LGBT plus people. What I mean is that by that is, LGBT plus people, despite all the progress that has been made and despite changing attitudes in society and all of that, coming out is still very much a thing that people have to do. Like, heteronormativity is still a huge thing, where it's just like, if you're a guy, it's just like, oh, do you have a girlfriend? Are you going to get married? No, 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 without even crossing their mind that like this person might be gay, or something, might be bi and might not want to get married to the opposite sex, kind of thing. And there's a parallel with that, in that, like, when it comes to kinks and stuff, like, this aspect of sexuality is still repressed, no matter what kind of kink it is. And it's like there's another kind of coming out. So like that coming out, whether it's a kink coming out or a general sexuality coming out, are similar. And I just wanted to like see what Jules's thoughts about that were.
Oh, okay. Hard questions. Got it. I don't disagree with the heteronormative that it's brought up because it exists. I work in the health industry as right now. And that's pretty common with just with the age demographic that I work with, as my clientele are very much a. I get asked all the time, "Are you married?" And then the ones that aren't fully there because they have dementia are like, "Oh, so how's your wife today? Is she good? I hope you're good. You seem you're real," and then it just goes off. But yeah, but you're always going to have to come out, even in like, because for me, I assume everyone is straight until proven otherwise, because it just makes it easier. I'm not saying it's a good thing, because you shouldn't just assume that, but at the same time, it's also just a way to like stop yourself from like getting hurt. Because I've this might just go off topic. I've almost been gay bashed a couple times while I was living in a bigger city than I am right now, because of just the environment that's happening within my section of Canada right now. So that's been fun. But when it comes to kinks themselves and coming out with that, I think the gay community is more open to certain kinks over others than more hetero people. Because at my work, this one of my coworkers was bashing this dude because he came on the first date, asked if she was willing to do feet stuff with him, and she wanted to vomit and jump out of his moving car. I hope that answers some of the question.
Yeah, well, yes. That's a bit icky. Oh, and I'm sorry that you had to go through the gay bashing type stuff. That's not good. Like, see, like that, like that's what I'd say. It's like that kind of stuff exists, but like even within gay spaces, there's just like, oh, you're into this weird thing, where I feel like the assumption should be not, oh, you're into this weird thing. It should be, what weird things are you into? Because, as the saying goes, everyone has a kink. We shouldn't just assume that vanilla is the norm. Whereas, I feel like, that still is the kind of assumption. Maybe not on certain spaces like Grindr and places like that. But yeah, vanilla isn't the norm. And I think what I was getting to is that, like, kink people should accept that for themselves, because I feel like a lot of people kind of struggle with the idea of having a kink, having a fetish, because they're just like, oh, I'm not normal. This is not good. Like, I shouldn't be into this stuff. And like, people have talked to me about that kind of stuff. They're like, I don't want to be into this stuff. And to me, there's just that parallel of like gay people thinking, oh, I shouldn't be gay. I shouldn't be gay. I should be straight because that's what's good. That's what's right. That's what's natural. And like, I don't think that's a good space to be in. And I kind of feel like the more we kind of realize that whatever kink you have is part of the spectrum of human sexuality, and as long as it doesn't involve hurting people non-consensually, people or other things, animals, whatever it is, as long as it doesn't involve non-consensual stuff, then like it's okay. Like, I think people, like, that's the kind of message that needs to be out there. What do you think about that?
No, I agree with that 100%. I just think that it takes a while, even if you do kind of try to normalize it, it's still going to take a long time before it finally sticks. I believe that you should make changes in small increments so that at the end you can, so the majority has the majority population has more time to get used to the idea before you just shove everything down.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I understand that. I'm not saying we're gonna like start a full on revolution of just like
Not
accept my
yet.
kink kind of thing. Not yet. We'll get there. But I think more on the personal level, it's just like people shouldn't be ashamed. And like, this is a very kind of relatively recent thing for me as well. Like, within the past few months, like, even I used to be like, how far am I going to take this? Like, whereas now I'm just like, I'm in too deep. This is my sexuality. Like, I shouldn't be ashamed of it. Like, this is me. Yeah. Like, what are your personal experiences with that? Like, I feel like you, you've actually told a lot more people in person, so you're probably further along than I am, Jules.
I come across as really confident, especially in my podcast, but I'm not going to lie. When I told everyone I was shitting bricks, uh, I get, I've told a lot of people that I've built really close bonds with. So I knew that if anything happened, it wouldn't be, well, later on in life, when I first started telling people I was 13 and stupid and just thought that, oh, this dude's into doing it, maybe he'll be like cool with it. And that was a horrible mindset to have, I guess. No, I mean, yes, in a way it was, in a way not really, but no, it took me until mid last year before I was actually to the point where I'm like, no, this is what I am, this is what I like, and fuck and damn all who don't care or like banish me. Because I've got tons of messages being like, you're into that, that's gross, or people just like being sarcastic about it, or like even yesterday my friend was joking with me about like like a lot of my friends are just very sexually playful. Like they just are super touchy. They're super flirtatious. That's just who they are as people. They're just very close. So now the fact that they're doing that with me makes me feel more accepted in that friend group, and that took about 4 years to make. But I just went off a tangent. But yeah.
I think it's good that you have that though. Like I know in my vanilla friend groups, that's just not a thing that I could talk about and be open with. It um like but then again, maybe I'm the one being vanilla normative now. Maybe they're into their own crazy things, and here I am. Maybe we
Yeah.
need to have that conversation to be better friends. I don't know.
I feel like I've been around since high school. I've been around a lot of people who have been open sexually, and I would have full on BDSM talks on the bus ride home from school with my friends because that's what they wanted to talk to that day, and be damned who was on that bus. But every person I've ever talked to, that's just how we bonded. One day we'd just be there and be like, "So what turns you on? Male, female, it didn't matter. That was just something we bonded. It was just kind of like, who are you into today? What's your love life? Had any fun nights?"
I think like we've had the discussion, like me and my friends group, like we talk about, the kink side of things. It's not like we shy away from sexuality in general, but like we only talk about the safe kind of topics. And when we talk about the relatively obscure stuff, it's always in a sense of, oh, I'd never do that, or like, oh, maybe I'd think about doing that, but like, oh, I don't know. It's never been like, oh, this is actually what I'm into. You were talking about this in your episode where it's like the safe kind of things. It's like BDSM. Like that's not even a kink at this point anymore. That's just what people like. Do you know what
You
I mean?
go BDSM, you go feet, you go underwear, you go socks, you just go like random stuff. Just like whatever you think on the top of your head, and then you go to your more middle ground stuff, which is I think our fetishes with like face sitting, farts, burps, body odor is more middle ground, and then you have like the extremist kinks that I'm not even going to talk about because some of the like I'm not. If you're into that, that's cool. They make me scared. Like they scare me, and I don't want to talk. Just
Where there's like, do you mean the kind of stuff where there's potential for like permanent bodily damage?
like non-con type thing where like it's non-consensual consent.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That stuff terrifies me.
Yeah. Funny, like within my kink circle friends, like sometimes we talk about like, oh, like this is a relative, like our kink farting is a relatively easy thing to have because like it's natural and everyone does it. Whereas
Yeah.
like, say for example, if you're into vor, like you're never going to be able to live that out. So it's like, we kind of got it easy.
I mean, if we're going off on like fantasy, there's fetishes that are completely fantasy based that I love to death because I know it'll never happen, but the idea of it just makes me so happy. And then the realistic stuff just as a super, but when you add the realistic stuff to the fantasy stuff, it's just a bonus.
Yeah, yes, yeah. I like that way of thinking about it. I didn't consider like the whole being into the fantasy aspect itself.
What I've learned is that there's kinks that you like happening to you, and then there's kinks that turn you on because you like the idea, not necessarily the action. For an example, I don't like dominance or like very, very aggressive people when I'm in real life because I will fight back. I'm very much a okay, you pass the line. But in like a story, a little bit of that, I'm cool with that. That's fine if both parties are consenting to it, and then there's a little bit of like a degradation in there, but not like it's not heavy handed, but like a little bit. Then like that's cool story based. But if it was like a meat and that happened, I'm like I'm gone. Sorry, we're done.
That's interesting. And I think this just shows like the whole spectrum of things because I'm sure there are people out there where they haven't had that experience where it's like if they're into it happening to them. But no, you're right. Like it doesn't have to be that way. Like you could just be into reading about it or like seeing pictures of it, but you don't want it happening to yourself. And like
Yeah.
that's okay.
I feel like we stole your podcast, and I'm sorry about that.
That's perfectly fine. I think people don't want to hear from me anyways. Let's face that. No, no. What I was the only thing I was really going to add, because obviously I don't have the same community experience you guys both have, but I will say I think as far as like assuming people are kinkless these days, I think can slowly be eased off our shoulders, because I mean one of the main reasons I started this podcast, and there's more than a few. I watched, my friend Ezra set up a podcast, and another colleague of ours, Rocket, who I've been on his podcast just again actually last week, and that episode just came out. So there's a reason this is happening, because more and more people are interested in these type of topics. I'm hoping more people will become more interested in our fetish specifically, but at the very least, we know people are interested about BDSM. I mean, one of the ones that's kind of connected to the fetish that no one even I've never heard really anyone talk about, maybe because no one liked the show or no one likes Lena Dunham, is the fact that I think she had an ass eating scene in that show. Like, that's not something you generally see in TV. At least not like that. Usually if that's happening, it's the man goes under the covers or whatever and he's eating her out or whatever, but they don't show that type of thing. So I think that's really a change in what has occurred societally, and I think that change is just going to keep happening quicker and quicker. The younger generation, your generation, Jules, is I think much more sexually free than even people in their 30s, people might of my generation.
Yeah, me and the Gen Zs are pretty cool.
I would agree, and in fact, this was another kind of question that I had, just like, because we're relatively close in age. I'm 27, Jules, or maybe I can't remember. How old are you again, Jules?
I'm 24.
24. Okay, so 3 years. But at the same time, I feel like I'm more towards the older side, as like I'm a millennial kind of thing, and like my experience with the fetish stuff is kind of colored by those people of that generation. So like even with the 3-year difference, your experience of fetish stuff would be a lot more open, a lot more accepting, and yeah, like would you agree? Like, what do you think?
I'm just at that odd range where I'm the first year of a new generation. So I was like, I'm in the forgotten years, as people like to call it, where I'm like, the internet wasn't a big thing yet when I was born, and I didn't grow up with a phone, because phones became like the smartphone came out when I was like in grade 7, grade 8. So I was like, and then like Instagram came out when I was in high school, or like close to high school, and so did like basically social media broke out when I was like growing up. So I should be good at it, but no, because why would I? I was still like being outdoorsy and not a shut-in as I am now. No, I feel like a lot of my generation, or like people that I know, are just very activist based, and we're very political. Like we the minute that we hate something, we boycott it and we want to tear it down. But if we love something, we're like, okay, how are we going to make everyone else love what we love?
Yeah.
I kind of I noticed that as well with you guys. Like, there is that you guys are like very much the activist generation. I feel like for the millennials, it was I think so, like there was some of us that kind of got that trend started, and then but like you guys really took it on and like made that your whole identity, not identity, but like, you made it like a massive thing. And like, within coming back to like the fetish space side of things, or like the sexuality space, like you guys are kind of at the forefront of being like, this is what we're trying to work towards. Like, this is the ideal society in terms of sexual freedom, and like, you know conservatives could fuck off kind of thing.
See, about the, I don't like that. I'm such a I'm political, but at the same time, I don't like the idea of ever trying to separate someone, even on a political basis. But like, I get your statement. It's just more of a. I feel like I don't know how to say it. I believe that when it comes to like our fetish type thing, there's not like there's conservative nature within some of it because if you want to go with the whole not showing like keeping your privacy setting because you could say like not showing your face or not talking in videos would be a conservative mindset because if you were totally free you wouldn't give a shit if a future employer or a friend stumbled upon and saw you full face ass to camera letting it go for the whole world to see.
Well, I think if I may interject, I think that's just the problem we have of today. And I'm not going to tell you you're like incorrect. Obviously, we all have our own views on politics. And I think just the problem is it becomes that again that capitalist expectation that what you do at home now becomes a reflection of what you do at work as well because we're all perpetually online. If someone doesn't like you, they can go find you. They can go find your pictures and post it up on the internet, and basically try to humiliate you. And I think that's the unfortunate. That is why some people feel the need to be so private, and that's it's understandable for sure. I think the one thing about the conservatism and why Gen Z maybe became more. I mean, I don't know, obviously, but like I expected millennials to be more politically active. I expected millennials to be more idealistic. But I think we kicked the can so many times down the road that Gen Z is just like, we're out of fucking time. And it never changes. But anyway, we keep drifting to politics. I apologize.
It's fine. I just want to clarify that I wasn't trying to shame people who don't show their face. It was just an extreme example. I get the whole not wanting to identify yourself. Like I don't want to come across as like you're bad.
Absolutely. And well, no, I don't think that's it. That's the norm. That's the norm. Most people don't want to show themselves. I think us being on the show here, we're deviating from the norm of people talking about kinks in general, but then furthermore within our fetish, because this is it shouldn't be, but it is a very quote unquote shameful fetish in the terms of people would think we should have shame about it. But the fact that we don't is challenging that paradigm. And I think that's important. I think that's important if you want change. If you don't want change, then fuck it. Status quo doesn't matter. But if you want change, then you have to be willing to challenge those paradigms. And again, this is not encouragement to go like, everybody rip off your cameras and show your faces. But like, there is an element to that people do need to go for. Some people do need to go forward for other people to go further. Just as I was talking with Rob about a lot of people in the gay community who stand on the bodies of those who came before and maybe don't recognize that their privilege comes from people who did have to do these fights. I apologize. I apologize for getting all Martin Luther King there.
No. I think, and this is once again, I think this is one of those parallels to like the having sexual freedom for LGBT people in general. Like, that was happening in like, 60s, 70s, 80s, even today still. But like, and now there's this like second kind of sexual liberation happening within the kink space. Like, is it as big a deal? Probably not, but like there are parallels there. I just also wanted to add that like when I was talking about conservative attitudes before, I didn't mean necessarily like people not wanting to show face or do verbal or whatever. I'm one of those people. Like I don't want my face out there, especially now on OnlyFans. I just meant people more in terms of like more boomerish type attitudes of like sexuality is just for straight people, man and woman kind of thing. Within marriage, Christian marriage.
I might have jumped the gun just a little bit. I'm sorry.
No, we're you know what? This is the first time we've all talked. So I think that's going to be inevitable that we're not always going to like be the most clear with what we're asking or what we're saying. So I don't think clarity or or anything else is a problem. Let me jump ahead. What's the next evolution of the fetish look for both of you? I think Jules talked about it a little bit in the one question I asked you, but let me jump to Jules first and see, like, what do you think that looks like, and what do you want out of that change? Like, how would you benefit from that change?
I think the evolution that I want to see in this particular field is everyone coming together. I really like the idea of or like even people who aren't into it, giving it like just being open and willing to try things. I always have the opinion that you should always have an open mind and try things once in your comfort zone. If it's not comfortable for you, then don't force it. But like, you never know, because who knows? In one of these times, the people who aren't into it could try to be like, I'm actually kind of into this, like not only because I feel like it's fun for them, and it could be used as like just a way for like friends to bond later on, or like I like the idea of making sexual things not sexual, because not everything has to be in the sexual context. Because there's times where, yeah, it turns me on, but there's other times where I'm like, no, it's just friends being friends and it's just fun. And like, if both people are getting something out of it, then like, cool. But I also want the idea that women and women and men into male farts can be open about it and be cool with the idea of not, or like even the gay scene, just watching videos that aren't necessarily gay couples or just men on man videos, and being okay with like having like the dominant, like the main part, like the fighter, I guess, being male, but like the submissive being like either or, because you're still getting the part that you're both into, I guess, without, but not necessarily just having it strictly just be like one pairing and that's it. I think that's where I want to see things go.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and that actually ties into my next question, which I'll ask you in just a moment. But Dil, did you have an idea on the evolution of the fart fetish and how you'd benefit from that change?
I completely agree pretty much with everything Jules just said. I think in addition to that, personally, like, I just like to see a lot more people kind of getting into it, or just like being open to it, and like, you know, reaching out and being like, hey, like, can we try this? Or like within I know within certain kink communities, like they've got a much more stronger kind of in real life kind of presence. Like I know the pup play people, like, you know, they meet in person a lot. Like the leather people, they meet in person a lot. Like the BDSM people will meet in person. Like I think there's a long way to go before like the fart fetish people can have that kind of thing. But you know, I'd like to see that kind of thing happening for us. And to add to what Jules was saying about like having not the same pairing in like fart fetish content, I know a lot of people are actually wanting to see that more. Like multiple people have, you know, in just conversations, they're like, oh, I think I'd love to see a video of a guy farting on a girl kind of thing. Because like I don't think there's anything like that out there. But yeah, like, you know, there is a desire for that to happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have a total of maybe 200 stories, and there's only 2 I written where a guy farts on a girl, and that was by request. So yes, I agree with you that I don't think that content is very prominent out there at all. You know, my interview with a female fart fetishist, obviously she's experienced this quite a bit because she's into, I mean, I guess thankfully for her, she's also into male farting as well. Female farting as well. But the problem with that is a lot of contexts when they're talking, you know, especially POV, they're like, oh, you know, they're using a lot of masculine pronouns, and that's going to take you out of it if that's not, you know, how you want to be addressed in your fantasy. So I do think that is a gaping hole in content, but also I think my hope is, I do realize we're far away from a physical event for us, but I'm hoping we're closer than we may think. I think if we get more people involved in these conversations, more of these, you know, active Telegram groups, more of these Discords going, or just more people involved in them, I think what is possible is fairly, endless. I mean, only restricted by our ability to organize.
I would definitely agree. I was just going to say, like, I've been noticing a lot of people like doing VR chats and stuff, and like I have no idea like how to even go about doing that. Showing my age here, but like that's definitely like the younger generation type space. But I feel like
No,
I'm seeing that more and more, and I feel like that's becoming a thing.
that's even younger than me. At least people who just turned 20.
Maybe.
Okay. Well, I feel like that kind of thing is going to become more popular, and I think in a previous podcast it was mentioned, someone mentioned it, where it's like maybe that's going to be the main form of like interaction
That was me, Dill.
at some point.
That was me. It's a question that's coming up in one of the questions as well. But obviously, I've collected the wrong group of individuals to talk about. No, I'm kidding. I'm fully kidding. But let me go back to what I said. I was going to talk about with what Jules said, and he actually mentioned it in his last interview, and I really failed to follow up on it well. I think, and it's that there's a lot of obsession with fetishists like us connecting with other fetishists, and absolutely we should. That's why we're here together having this podcast. But I think there's nothing that says you can't find a non-fetishist who may be willing or even enjoy farting around or on or for you. So I don't think we can limit our pool. And that ties into, I think, how open you are about your fetish, Jules, with people who are not fetishists. Can you talk any more about that in particular?
I can try my best. I think, yeah, I agree. I think you could say this with any fetish, that you need to try to, because what I found easier for me is because I don't always want to talk about the fetish constantly, but the people who I talk to who are also into it, that's, in my experience, that seems to be all they want to talk about. And when you try to deviate from it, it always ends up going back to it, and you can't just have normal, quote unquote, like not normal conversation, but like topics outside of this is hard to come by. But with people outside of it, yeah, you can bring it up every so often, and it's fun, and it's sometimes those are like my favorite conversations because it's just but out there. You're like, I didn't expect that to come out of your mouth, but here we are. But also, it's just like it's fun. It's for like both sides, because if you're into it and you're into it, it's everyone is fun and you're having excitement. But when it comes to like non people, like not like people who aren't into it, I feel like for them, they get something else out of it that's not sexual gratification. And I think if we focus on that angle, everyone could have fun, because I've an experience like going back to one of my previous experience, the person of my first ever experience, which lasted 6 months of like nonstop of just, it was just like, it started off with him just messing around and doing all that, but he got enjoyment out of it because he found it funny, and he found it like, oh, this is just like the best thing ever. Well, other people that I've had, non fart fetishes that I've had interaction with, were like, oh, that's cool. Or we do something else, and then they'll just let it go, and then they'll just be like, did you hear that? Was that good? What type of farts do you like? Is this the smell that you like? Yesterday I mentioned to one of my friends that I was going to be on doing another episode. He's like, oh, I'll just do it. I'll do the interview for you, and I'll just talk about how you love really stanky, eggy farts, and that's all we're going to talk about for an hour. And I'm like, no, we're not doing that today.
It's a very good point, and something. Obviously, I mean, this show, that's all we talk about. But it's a good point that there should be more things outside of the show. I think I always go to video games as a possibility. Like the people of this group get together and play something that people enjoy, and not even talk about the fetish, but actually just enjoy ourselves and our company together and talk about normal things. Hey, what movie did you see? Hey, whatever. Like, I think, the scope of the show obviously is to talk about fart fetish for as long as I have whoever's here. But I think the scope of the community should definitely be much more. What do you think about any of that, Del?
Yes, I agree. Like, there are people that will constantly talk about farting, and like it does get kind of tiring. Me, when I first started talking to people, this was back in 2015, my whole intention was like, I want to get to know people beyond the fetish side of things. And like, I've made some really good friends that way, where, you know, I know about their lives in general, and we can talk about other kind of stuff, like, and you know, inevitably we circle back to fetish stuff every now and again, like, we'll trade videos and all of that, but it's like we're just friends, where this one thing is just one thing we have in common. It's not like, it's not the foundation of a friendship. It's like, you know, I care about you beyond all of this stuff. Like, I want to know how you're doing. I want to know, like, what's going on with your life. I want to know, like, you know, what other things do we have in common, kind of, yeah, all that kind of stuff. Whereas I feel like some people are maybe scared to put more of themselves out there, because like it might be the case that some people feel like, oh, I have to talk about fetish stuff because like it at least that's a safe topic. I don't want to talk about other things because, you know, maybe like that, maybe they're assuming that the other person only wants to talk about fetish stuff. Maybe that's it. I don't know. Maybe it could just be that they have very bad social skills, and in some cases that's the case, or it very much seems to be. But yeah, like, for anyone listening to this, you know, try to have normal conversations with people as well. Like, they appreciate that usually.
I think there's a couple of issues, and you touched on them. The one, and you did say it, and the one that stands out the most to me is the privacy concern. The more you share, the more you've opened the door into someone realizing who you are. So unless you've made up like, oh well, my fetish persona likes these bands and these movies and whatever, like unless you've cooked up something for yourself, you're basically like, if you like a really obscure band, like let me say one for me, I like Black Moth Super Rainbow. Who the fuck has ever heard of that band? And yet, like, that kind of identifies me as who I am. Like, thankfully, I don't care anymore. You know, my name's on this podcast. You know, I retweet it from my, you know, main Twitter account. There's nothing. I'm not scared anymore so much. And I'm not, again, this isn't me encouraging people to be more open, but to the level that you can be, I think you are very right to encourage people to absolutely have more normal conversations. And you know, listening to Jules, and you know, I think we all would appreciate being better connected with people. I think that's one of the, you know, one of society's great problems right now is a greater disconnection between people. You know, I'm not going to say like, oh, the 50s and 60s were the best time in the world for everyone, but like I'm
pretty sure segregation was literally a thing at that time.
You know, that's fine. No, that's exactly my point. Is like it wasn't great for everyone, but the point is there was like this. TV and media showed us this idyllic image of like, you know, cops that aren't just, you know, power hungry whatevers, and they're actually community members, and people in the community are community members. They bake pies for each other and they do this. And obviously that's also partly fantasy, but I don't think, if that never existed, I don't think that that's impossible. Maybe the pies are impossible, but I do think that people can have community. And remember what it is to be in a neighborhood and in a greater community in general. You know, it's capitalism, but there's a lot of fixes. There's a lot of things that need to go into, we're not just going to find community tomorrow just because I said, hey, shouldn't we all be in a community? There's so many aspects of our lives, time, work, all these things work against that. So it takes a strong effort to build those aspects, but I think they're vitally important and we need them.
I think just as a species in general, like, you know, we're a social species. We need our society. We live in a society. We live in a community. No, we need to have that kind of connection, whether like, and I think just because of the unique nature of this specific community, like, it's going to be hard for it to be in a physical space. Like, you know, sure, you can bake a pie for your neighbor, but like you can't just go up to your neighbor and be like, hey, do you wanna fart on me?
I mean, you could. You just have to deal with the consequences.
I want to live in a world where I can go to my neighbor and ask them if they can fart on me. No, obviously, yeah, I don't think that's ever going to happen. But I do think, I think that's why this show is not like, it's not meant to reach normal people. Like, I'm not saying don't listen to this, normal people. Stop listening now. But like, this is meant for us, for right now. This is meant to bring us together and say like, hey, I'm seeing something that I want to change. So I'm going to bring this show and we're going to talk about it and hopefully people are. And I've been very surprised and honored to learn that people do. People like Dil, people like Jules, people that have other people who have come on the show. And as people slowly start trickling into the Discord as well, I think that'll increase because I think people are hungry to talk about this, even if they're not ready to like present their full, like normal mainstream self, I guess. People do want to have discussion about what's happening in this world. And more importantly, to Jules' point, I think they want to connect with people that they may share other interests with as well. And if they're in this community, maybe so much the better in some ways. I guess if they're only talking about fetish stuff, not so great. But, I think we'll all learn to have our personalities come back as, the more we do this. Because I don't know if I ever said this, but I think part of the problem in this community is because people are so isolated. They feel that they can't interact with other people. They feel like they're going to be ostracized. They're going to be shamed. And so they don't. So they don't have any practice in stretching these skills and exercising these social muscles. Obviously, I'm not talking for everyone in the community. I've talked to at least a few that have talked to other people and, gotten their fetish satisfied that way. But that doesn't seem to be the norm. The norm that I'm seeing, at least in the straight submissive side, is that it's a lot of perpetually online people who don't seem to be getting out there in any social aspect, let alone the fetish. Dil, I realize I never really asked you how you came to realize you had this fetish. Can you talk a little bit about your origins and when about that was that you discovered?
For me, I'm one of those like this has been always a thing since childhood type people. I know a lot of people have the whole, oh, my friends used to like fart on me, or like, I had a cousin or something and like they would just sometimes fart on me for fun. And like, I never had that kind of thing. For me, it's just like, it's always been there. Even when I was like 4 years old, I remember just having these, like obviously I didn't realize it was sexual at the time because like being four, um, but like it was just like a strange kind of fascination with 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 farting. And like there might be a scene in a cartoon where a character farts or something like that, and like you just get this kind of like fluttery feeling. And I remember I think I was 6 at the time, and there was like a scene in a cartoon where someone was like drinking some kind of fizzy drink, and then I was just like, oh god, I need to leave. Like if they burp, oh sorry, because that's another one of my kinks as well. But like same kind of idea. Like if this character burps, oh no, I'm not going to be able to handle seeing that on TV. Like I didn't know why, but like I was just like, I need to get out of here before I see it. Like that, like that's the kind of thing that was there when I was younger. Same kind of thing with farting. Yeah, and then um fast forward to like maybe 13. When I was 13, yeah, like I'd see things on YouTube, like people were starting to post videos and stuff, and I was just like, oh, this is nice. Let me watch more. Then you'd come across like actual spaces online where people were like discussing it, and then like you learn what the word fetish means, and like then it's like, oh yes, this is this is a thing, like this is what it is. And yeah, so that's kind of my journey with it. It started with like a weird interest that I couldn't explain, like a weird fascination type thing. Even when I was younger, like I would fantasize about like guys farting around me. And when I say younger, I mean like, 10 and stuff. Like I didn't realize what it meant or like what it was, but yeah, I'd think about like just being with in a group of guys and just like all of us like farting with each other, and like I guess that was an early form of masturbation for me. And yeah, and it kind of went on from there until I discovered real masturbation. and um and yeah, like here I am now making content for other people to masturbate to.
It's great. And it's interesting. And maybe this is why the three of us are more introspective, is we did all start out fairly early on with our realization, our awakening to this fetish. I think that's actually one of the problems. We kind of talked about this. It's kind of the whole like, should we all be talking about the fetish all the time? And obviously the answer is no. But like, I think one of the big problems we do need to combat or find someone to circumvent is, it seems like most people, the majority of people in this fetish, don't want to get introspective or do this kind of like thought experiment, as it were, like we're doing here. Do you feel like that is something that will change over time, or more that we should just focus and find those people who are willing to go down this type of discussion? Jules, why don't you go first?
I think it will become more common even after my episode. I was thinking back to more of the stuff, and then I came to realize that due to the fact that I'm Canadian, we have a lot of Canadian centric shows, and a lot of them are cartoons, which we are huge. And there's one studio for sure that every show they've ever made has one or two characters who are just known for farting. And one of those shows, which is 16, which is one of my favorite childhood shows, had a character who, in one of the episodes, was took a pair of goggles and we just wanted to watch guys fart. But that was the entire B plot, was this dude just wanting to see infrared farts, and the security guard mentions the fart fetish within the episode to try to get it back near the end of it. And going back to that, I'm like, yeah, that might have. Yep, that was a thing. I was really into that man. And then that studio also made Total Drama, and Total Drama, everyone knows about that. They have that particular character that's just known for. I just love Canadian TV. A lot of Canadian products, for some odd reason, has farting as like a premise in almost every show, or just a character that's just known for it without. But that's just a side tangent. But no, I believe that the more, I think you need to have more of like thinking about it and being like more probing, because it's just at the end of the day, it's just fun. It's fun to figure out where things come from.
Yeah, I agree. What about you, Dill? What is your thoughts on that?
No, definitely. Like it's, I my whole mindset has been just like figure yourself out. It's like know thyself kind of thing, and I think everyone should kind of learn about themselves and like what makes them tick, kind of thing. Me and a friend have a running joke between us where it's like everyone should go to therapy as well, just because it helps you be more introspective and figure out like why you are the way you are, the good and the bad. So yeah, definitely. I feel like when people start when I start having conversations with like other fetish people, like it is a thing that usually comes up quite early on. Like the conversation will usually go, "Hey, how are you?" ASL. Then you tell how old you are, where you're from, and then usually it will either be like, "Do you want to trade videos?" or like even worse, "Are you gassy right now?" I hate that. Um,
That hits home, or they just don't respond.
yes, yeah. Or sorry, it will be, "Are you gassy right now? Do you want to trade videos?" It might be, "You want to trade face pics?" Or it will be like, "How did you get into this?" Like that, like it comes up quite early on. Like I feel like that's just the standard script to follow in the conversation. So I think people do think about it. I think there's maybe to a degree there's a bit more digging to do in terms of, well, okay, this is where it started, but what am I going to do with it, kind of thing. Maybe that's what we should talk about more in terms of like, how am I going to interact with other people? How am I going to present this side to the world? Because by choosing to have conversations with people, like you're presenting it to the world, but like, how are you going to go about doing that? That's what we should be more introspective on. To add to Jules' point about like Canadian shows, like yes, very popular here. Like, so thank you Canada. Like my childhood, like so many Canadian shows, and like yes, you're completely right. They always have like that the one or two like fart character, like body humor, toilet humor type characters, and I feel like that's responsible for a lot of people's like awakenings. So yeah, like politically, Australia always like bows down to the USA, and I feel like we need to change our allegiance. We need to be more grateful for Canada.
I love Australian programming. Growing up, I watched a lot of British and Australian programming. So American programming was like, oh, that's actually American. I thought it was not. Cool.
Yeah, I think for here, it's like the general assumption is that like everything comes from America, but it's like, oh, it's Canadian. Okay, but yeah.
We have better music. It's fine.
Ooh. You also like gave the world Justin Bieber, so
actually Usher gave the world Justin Bieber, not mine.
Okay.
So that's a funny abdication, but all right. No, I want to come to something we kind of talked about. Maybe it's not worth going over again, but like I really obsessed with this idea of a unified space. I've talked with Dil and I think maybe at least one other person about like it may not be easy or possible just because of the differences between the two orientations. But I do think there is a need for like a main discussion to happen of fetishes of all types. You got female fart fetishes, you got the male subs, the male doms, which is an interesting perspective, like male dominant but wanting women to fart on them. So I guess that's like the perspective of people who want to have anal done to them, like be fucked in the ass, but also want to be in charge of it at the same time. Like, yeah, fuck me in the ass, that type of thing. And that in that sense, you're still doming, even though you're receiving a bottom action. So anyways, male dom, that's a new perspective for me in the fart fetish community that I've seen. I've barely explored that at all, but I've seen some of that. And then obviously the gay side of both male and gay dom and gay sub as well. And I think a main conversation of all those types is important just for further parsing out what this fetish is about, what's it mean to other people, just the general, what we do on the show, essentially. And then I think in that, like I'm assuming Discord or something, but it doesn't have to be. But from that, there's smaller groups of basically by desired farter. Like you have male farts and female farts. That way, the men and women who like male farts can go in that section. The men and women who like female farts can go in that section. That keeps it from being too granular. Like I'm a male that enjoys female farts, but I also enjoy like it just keeps it a little more, I don't know, sane in my mind. But I think that idea, that kind of grouping can help people find each other. It can help, pretty much everyone but straight submissive men, honestly, because it seems like dominant female fart fetishes are probably the least available group in this section, the least numbers in this fetish thus far. That could change, but as far as right now, the dominant female seems to be the outlier of the group. But, we may get some, men to fart for women or on them, or women to fart on men. Even, it may inspire straight men to make content for gay fart fetishists. Probably not a lot, but, anyone who might have an idea of like, oh, I do this for humor, or I do this as a point of pride. My farts are awesome and I want people to see them or smell them or whatever. Like, I think that's the ideal of like a conjoined community. What are your thoughts? Let me go to Dil first on this one.
I like that idea in theory. In practice, there was a similar kind of space. I think it was called the Fart Fetish forums, but like it had the kind of similar thing to what you were talking about of like into people into males, people into females, and like there were discussion threads and all of that. But it basically just turned out into like people posting there being like, oh, I'm a male 25 from New York, any girls near me wanting to fart. Like it just kind of devolved or degenerated into that. So I think yes, it would be great to kind of have that, but like we need to kind of level up everyone, I guess, to move beyond just like the baser lizard brain sexual instinct. For people to be able to like be decent with each other and like realize that like we're humans and treat each other as such rather than just as sexual objects. So yeah, love the idea, but we got some work to be able to get to that point.
That's a very good statement, actually. I have no better way to put that, actually, because and it ties into what I was talking about, like finding the introspective people or finding a way to make more people introspective. I think it's going to be more of the former in this case, but hopefully we can level up. I think that was a great term. People into normal people, like knowing how to interact with people. Like and here's the thing. I say that flippantly, but I'm among them. Like I'm scared to talk to people. I'm scared to, I'm sitting next to a girl at a a comedy club or whatever. I'm scared to be like, "Hey, have you been here before?" Like there's nothing scary about that question, but just the fact that you haven't broached it yet is scary. So I 100% get why people are scared and why people are not, again, quote unquote, I'm not going to say quote unquote, why they don't have social skills, because it's hard and you need to actually work on it. Just like people who like envy people who have muscles. It's like, yeah, you could have muscles. You just got to work at it. And same thing, you could be social, you just have to work at it. And I'm learning that myself just as much as I'm out here like trying to encourage people not to make those type of posts on FetLife, because FetLife is more or less the same thing for most of the fart fetish groups. It's just people posting, "Hey, I'm 25, I'm in New Jersey, any female want to sit on my face and fart?" Like, it's just not going to work. And yet it just keeps happening. It's like living Groundhog Day. Every time you go to FetLife, it's like, I'm going to see another post of someone posting their age and their location as if someone's just going to fly to them magically and fart on their face. It takes a lot of work. Just like it takes a lot of work to date someone and get them to have sex with you. It takes a lot of work to do this. And this is arguably harder because they're not on the same page as you are. In terms of this fetish, there might be in the, guys fuck me mindset, because that's the norm. But if you're coming to them with a different thing, you might have to work a little harder. It's not something to be like, "Oh, I'll never, it'll never happen, blah, 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 I can't, woe is me, blah, blah, blah." It sucks and it's hard, but it's just got to get done. And I think that was something I wanted to say about both of your comments to a previous question is this show, fortunately or unfortunately, is a de facto encouragement for, men who are falling by the wayside in, normal society. I don't know if the gay side has this problem as much, but the straight side definitely has a significant problem of, men falling behind in terms of, their skills, their desirability, their all this. And it's not just like, well, it's all the women's fault. They're not accepting our low standards anymore. No. It's our job to do work. I think men, and I'm speaking out of my ass here, but I feel like men have been told too many times, it's like, it's your world. It's the way you want to do it. It's you're the good one, and the way you perceive life is the right way. And it's just not the case. And I think we're finally slowly breaking past those ideas that just because you're a man, this world is yours and you can just take whatever you want out of it. And I think fetishists especially have learned that, because that's not the way the world works. I don't know if any of that made sense.
No. It makes sense. And yeah, I think like a lot of, well, I'm assuming maybe there are a lot of like straight fart fetishists who are who like they've had this kind of idea, even subconsciously fed to them, where it's like, yeah, it's a man's world, but then they're putting themselves out there, being like, hey, any women want to fart on me, or like they might even maybe they find someone, but then they don't know how to like even talk to her, and then they're just like, wait, what? Women have agency? When did this become a thing? Um, and yeah, and it's like they have to like kind of navigate this new space where like that's the thing where like women can decide for themselves what they want and don't want to do with their bodies, and like within not like a relationship in the sense of like interaction between two people. It's just like, what? Women don't have to listen to everything I say and do everything that I tell them to? What kind of world is this? Like that's an exaggeration, but yeah, I think people are like maybe it comes as a shock to some people where it's like I'm not just gonna get what I want.
Yeah, because I mean, all I wanted to add was, I think there's a lot of bad male role models rising up, and I'm not going to sit here and say I'm a role model. Fuck that. I'm not a role model. Don't follow me. But I think I do have some insight that maybe you want to take, maybe you don't, maybe it's not right for you. But the point is, I do want to provide a more positive example for men that may be struggling, because I was definitely a struggling man. And in other circumstances, I'm dancing around the term incel. In other circumstances, I may, have been down those rabbit holes and gone down those roads that are pretty fucking dark in my estimation of looking at it. So I think this show is, that wasn't the purpose. Obviously, I didn't think like, oh, that was going to be the reason. But I do think it is important to provide males with another perspective that isn't just ego and, women are the force of chaos or whatever the fuck any of these figures are saying online these days or in public. I just like, you're a person. And the person you want to talk to is also a person. Realize that, and how you're coming to it, realize they're coming to it in a similar way. They're nervous, they're introverted or scared. Not everything, just because you see everyone as maybe an enemy, you kind of project this like, oh, people don't want to talk to me. And I'm talking to myself here. Like, people don't want me to come up and talk to them. Like, that's not necessarily true. Maybe you find one or two that don't, and fuck them. But like, most people are just as nervous and sure of themselves as you are. And you making the move is just sometimes, and talking, obviously, you making a move to talk to them is sometimes the light in the world. I mean, that's a little dramatic, but that is, in this world where people do just like cross each other on the sidewalk and don't even like look at each other's eyes, talking to someone is a bit of an act, not an act, but a bit of a brave thing to do in a world that isn't quite there anymore. Maybe it never was. We talked a bit about this. I'll leave the VR part about it, but I do think people are meeting more and more online. From my own anecdotal view, looking at like Gen Z, for instance, they seem to find more friends over like voice chat in a video game than they do like out in the world. Maybe they don't go out, actually. Most of their, they go to school and then they go home and play video games. And this is not me like, don't play video games, but like, this is where people are interacting. Is that going to be a problem for a fetish like this because of our small numbers? Or is this just the new way to meet people? And then those who are motivated will continue to go out and meet up and have real interactions, as long as, geographic locations or whatever, money, whatever, lines up. What do you guys think? Let's start with Dil.
I think people will always have a desire to meet in person. I think there's no like, I'm pretty sure all of us suffered lockdowns in some form or another. I know where I am. We had the longest lockdown in the world, I believe. That may not be the case anymore with China, something. Anyway, But like, I think that just proved that like we want to see people in person, and I think fetish or not, like we want in-person interaction. So yeah, it might be the case that people are meeting each other online more, and I think you're more likely to run into the people with this kind of interest. You're more likely to find that online rather than in real life. But like, I don't think that will stop people from wanting to take that interaction to an in-person kind of thing.
Absolutely. Well, and I think the not to become a finance channel, but I think that's what the economics pan out as well. As things became less locked down, businesses did a lot better. So obviously, people are very hungry to be back out in the world, maybe at their own, health detriment. But the fact remains that people do want to be out at the bars, out at the clubs, out at wherever people meet and doing it. And even if like one of the kink clubs near me has extremely stringent entry, you need a specific type of mask. I think starting this next month, you need boosters, and I think these are all good provisions. But that's not the norm in terms of most places you go. So there are, and that's my point of saying that is people do still go. I think these venues are still very busy because they don't care. They'll put up with the restrictions because they just want to be there amongst other people who kind of get their thing, whether it be kink or whatever. What do you think? I was going to jump to you next, Jules. What do you think about that? The meeting online, and is that the future, and is that a problem?
I don't see a problem with it because as a really, really big gamer who's terrified of talking to people, but still ends up talking to people, I'm a hypocritical person by nature, apparently. But that's what I think. It's like that's why so many gamers go to like PAX or MagCon. It's just because you met all these, you have like your gamer squad, and then you go to the conventions, you meet up. But like I think if you meet people through those, like my friend group, I met all of them online before I met them in person like 6 months later, and then it was just seeing people face to face was just exciting. But yeah, that's why it's like if you like even like getting by like let's say I'm like conventions are a good way to meet people, but like meeting people who have the fetish but also likes anime, you guys could meet up for an anime convention and have like a little like the main goal is like anime, but like the sub goal is like if we like each other and we're along with friends, but we get in person and we are still having fun and meeting up, and then maybe we could go move to something else.
Yeah, that's a great point. Specifically conventions, actually, because they are often very expensive, but also they draw a lot of people who otherwise might stay home and not do anything else, but they will go to this convention, once a year. So it can bring people from a lot of different geographic locations to one place, and then you can have in the periphery these fart fetish experiences. Assuming you met up. Hey, I'm going to come to the convention. Let's maybe do something later or whatever. Let's go have lunch or whatever.
Can I just add to that? Like,
Please.
you're talking about conventions and stuff. I think furries. Oh my god, like they're great, aren't they? Like furries are amazing. I love furries. Not a furry myself. Maybe I could be at some point, but like not right now.
I can turn you
Oh, are you a furry?
a little bit. Yeah, it took that was harder to accept than accepting that I had this. That was a lot of my friends be like, "You're a fucking furry." Just accepted like, "No, I just like anthropomorphic animals. It's fine."
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what? There's no problem with that. Like, I feel like, yeah, furries get a bad rap, but like, I think, in terms of like, they've created a community for themselves, a massive community. And like, from what I've seen, like, they're always so supportive with each other and everything, usually. Like, it's not perfect, but like, and in terms of like, there's a massive crossover between furries and like fart fetishes as well. I don't know if
It's huge because there's so much art and stories about it. Like they're just open to everything. Like each furry community, like the furry community has like subgenres. It's like everyone's a furry, and then you have a subgenre you go to.
Yes, exactly. And so, like, bringing back to the main point, it's like you're talking about conventions. I feel like if you want to meet people in real life, like, you need to go to a furry convention because, like, I feel like they'd already be open to to sexual stuff. Not that
Yeah.
furries is all about like sex and everything. I know they don't like that perspective, and like it's not always the case, but like there's definitely a sexual element to a lot of it from what I've seen. But yeah, sorry, that like I can't even remember what I was going to say now. But yeah, furries, conventions, meeting people.
Do
It's
it.
a thing.
No.
Yeah.
I do think, but
Call
I
in.
do. I do think you're right, Dill, that furries do get a bad rap. My hope is that, similar to foot fetishists, that this is the necessary step in society before it becomes kind of more acceptable. Like the fact that it is talked about so often, it's parodied in cartoons. I know at least one episode of American Dad had a furry, and I don't think it was poorly handled. It probably wasn't the most aware portrayal, but the point is, like, this is happening more and more, and the more you see it, the more people learn to be like, this is just something that exists. This is a part of human sexuality. Similar to, even though we're getting pushback now, unfortunately, we're going backwards in terms of like LGBT plus. Yes, LGBT plus, we're going backwards in that way, but people have, for the most part, started to accept it. Like, yes, this is an aspect of human sexuality. These aren't what conservative politicians try to vilify. These are just people exploring a different aspect of sexuality. So my whole point of that is hopefully furries gets there, and hopefully more fetishes get in that same way as well. I'm gonna come to the end here. This has been an amazing conversation. We should probably do 2 people panels more often, because there's just so much to grab from it. So much and just I don't know, just great conversation, perspective that I just don't have, and it's great to get someone else, Dil, specifically your question and the back and forth you've had. I'm so glad we did this. Let me jump to a question that I feel like I've only asked to the female fart fetishists thus far. And it's a little bit of a fun question. What aspects of a fart do you find appealing? Let me start with Jules. If I may give you an example, sorry. I like the female fart fetishist specifically said she didn't like smell. I believe she liked sound and I think vibration. What about you, Jules?
Oh, this is fun. This is a question I get asked a lot from certain people. Or a lot of from certain podcasts I heard out, a lot of people don't like it. I actually enjoy the smell sometimes. If I'm really, really into the person, honestly, it smells nice to me. Like, it's not a horrible thing. And because my favorite type is the silent ones, I think those are great. For some odd reason, those ones peak, top tier. But like, I'm not a fan of sound that often. I'm more for like length, and like if in person, like the feeling, like I like the rush of air, I guess, that you feel when it happens. But no, I can take or leave sound.
Nice. What about you, Dill? What aspects do you find most appealing?
That's interesting, Jules. Like, for me, sound is the main thing. I love like the big bassy, like, yeah, that's my thing. Like, big and bassy. It doesn't necessarily have to be long, just like powerful. And I've got a few people in mind. Like people on Twitter that like come to mind when I think about it. Sound, I think sound mainly because like that's usually what you get to experience like online. I do like the smell as well. Like, if it's in person, I'd prefer it to be through at least one layer. I'm not sure how well I could take like just being directly farted on, like fully bare. Like I've done that. But like, yeah, like wear underwear or just like pants or jeans, whatever. Like that is my thing. And yes, vibrations as well. Like I like everything about it. Silent ones, sorry, they don't really do it for me. Like, the idea can be kind of hot, where it's like you're with the guy and like it just starts smelling and you're like, hey, you did that, didn't you?
See, that's amazing. I'll get you to love it one day. That'll be my goal.
Okay. But yeah, you can't really enjoy an SPD the same way in video form because like you don't hear anything and
Yeah.
you can't smell anything. In stories and in person it's different, but like when it comes to video
If
content,
it's a video program, no, there has to be a sound. Or like, what's the point?
yes, exactly.
But I do agree with you on the whole clothing thing because I've done it bare and I'm like, there's no smell and it makes me sad. At least with underwear, there's like a scent.
And like it lingers in the clothes and
I
everything.
don't get people like. Sorry, I just think cloth is superior.
Interestingly, when it comes to sound, like I know a lot of people. I guess maybe the people that are more hesitant of like recording their bodies for whatever reason, if it's just like a black screen and hearing the sound, that doesn't do it for me. Like I need to see something as well. I don't know if you've seen like the people that do like fart edits. Like there'll be like a picture, like a drawing of someone just like, and they add the sound on top of that. Even that can sometimes do it for me. I think once again this just shows like how varied this is. I feel like lots of people will love this discussion that we're having right now.
Can't wait for comments because with one of the podcasts that you posted, this guy's like, I hate this. I'm not because I think the words was I'm not one of those freaks that say that farts smell like roses and I like the smell. I'm like, I was iffy about his phrasing on that, but like I can't wait for like some of the messages being like, are you is that real? Like, are you positive on that? Like,
Well, I goddamn, this has been a really good experience. I hope you both enjoyed it as well. Is there anything like you'd like to say before I sign off? Dil, why don't you start if you have anything?
What is it? I don't know. I feel like we've talked about everything. Just I guess the main takeaway of this is be introspective, be nice to people, and like for the people that are finding it hard to maybe like accept this aspect of it, put yourself out there. Just like it's a thing. You can't really get rid of it, in my experience. So yeah, shamelessly plugging in my OnlyFans as well.
Yeah, please do.
Subscribe to me. OnlyFans.com/stinky with 3 Y's DJ. I have to.
No, you have to. That is a requirement. Once you have those things,
that's the nature of the platform. Like you just have to. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate it. I'm sure people will appreciate it as well as they come to find you from this podcast. Jules, what about you? Do you have anything to close us out on?
Yeah. Be safe, be nice. Don't take yourself too seriously because that just makes things less fun. Also, if you want to talk to me at all, my Twitter is Jules Knight, and I will respond to most DMs if you're nice to me. If you aren't nice to me, then I won't respond. So just nice.
Jules Knight, I have seen you before.
Yeah, you have. There you go. That's my new alias. Before that, I was known as Tally Fan for a while. In the birth fetish forums, I think is or sometimes if I don't want to, I'm like, why am I here?
Wait, you were on the bird fetish forums as well. We need to have like a proper chat outside of this.
Again, my DMs are open. Anyone, come hit me up. I like conversation. I am learning to be more socially aware.
I
think we all are. So don't feel like you're alone there. Yeah.
Same with me. Like, feel free to talk. Just like be decent. Yeah.
Tell me your favorite movie. That's your opening line. If you want to message me after this, tell me your favorite top 5 movies, and then I'll tell you if you have taste or not.
Oh, that's a challenge. I will message you after this.
I'll wait. I'm particular. I'm very critical when it comes to my craft, so I'm waiting.
I love this. This has been an amazing conversation, guys. We should probably actually do this again. I don't know, maybe a couple months down the road or something. We'll see. We'll feel it out. But I cannot thank you both enough for taking the time, doing this, and giving us such a good talk today. Thank you very much, both of you.
Thank you for having me on again. I will happily come back whenever you want to have someone else to talk to.
Thank you for letting me back on so early because we literally talked like 3 weeks ago.
Don't worry. There'll be some distance.
The next time we come, I'll be in Europe. So a whole different time zone.
Nice. That'll be a new scheduling challenge, but we will do it. We will do it because
More stories.
It's worth it. Yeah, that too. That too. You can see if Europe has any greater promiscuity around farting. You can let us know. You should probably start a YouTube channel of your fart travels, but also talk about other things. Do not just talk about farts, for God's sake. People don't like that.
No, I'll do it. My acting career at Ireland. It'll be a travel blog.
I love it. Guys, I cannot thank you enough. I look forward to having you both on again, individually, together. It doesn't matter. You both are amazing. And thank you very much again.